You're welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kenichuko. It's my pleasure to be here with everyone. I'm just going to take a moment to share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So today we're going to talk about entrepreneurship in the age of AI. And I'm going to go briefly through this. Dr. Kenny has already introduced me well, and I'm so grateful to be here in front of you today because I believe entrepreneurs are critical to maintaining the value that humans create going forward, especially when AI, as AI is coming to our world, as it's augmenting the things humans can do, and in some places replacing the things humans can do. Businesses, business owners, founders, etc. We provide a place for people to find their purpose. A lot of people find their purpose through working at the business. So by us creating more jobs, by us creating opportunities, by us creating visions, I believe we can keep people excited in the future going forward. So as Kenichuko already introduced, I'm a full-time entrepreneur, and I'm really invested in the growth of humanity. One of my visions for my life and for the world is I want to help 1 billion people improve their lives drastically, and that's via entrepreneurship and via leadership. So without, I know we don't have much time together today, so I'm going to jump into my goals for you today. So my goals for you today are a few things. I want to talk about the strengths and limitations of AI. That's going to be the foundation of our call. And then onto that, we're going to talk about foundations and organization and how that relates to AI. And then value creation / competition in business, right? So first, we are always talking about what AI can do, right? So AI is really, really good at analyzing and processing data, especially large data sets. Why I focus on large data sets is because humans, we process data actually really well, and we process large data really well also. However, AI is able to take terabytes, essentially thinking, let's say 100 lifetimes, they're able to process that in a few minutes to a few hours. That's something humans can't do at a current rate. And then quickly output. I also work as an adjunct professor at one of the universities here in New York. And something we see, which we don't love to see sometimes, students utilizing AI to do their homework or do their group projects, etc. And you're able to see somebody complete a massive assignment maybe in 1 to 5 minutes, right? So AI is able to quickly produce things in ways that humans can't yet. However, that comes with its course and its limits, right? So just like AI, just like everything, AI needs certain things for it to run. It needs data, right? Artificial AI is nothing without its data. So it needs to be constantly fed and updated on data. Interesting aside, we have produced more data in the last 100 years than we did in the last, in all history of life on this planet. So data is not just being produced, but that means there's a massive amount of information that needs to be analyzed, processed, and sorted through. Some predictions say that 10% of all energy consumption in the future will go towards data centers. So AI needs energy, right? It needs a lot of energy to be able to process both from the analytical side and also from the output side. So that's something. And then chips, right? So I'm going to dive into foundations and things a little bit later, but there's chips, systems, servers, internet connectivity. We often think about how much AI can do for us, but in order to stay in business, we also need to know what we can do for AI, what AI needs in order to exist. So that's why I quickly went through these strengths and limitations and what AI actually needs to perform. Usually I love to take more questions. I'm going to save that till the end. I usually love to have interactive conversations. I'm going to save that a bit towards the end, but there'll be, I'll save about 10 minutes then for that, but there's one slide in particular where I want to hear some comments, and I'll let you know what that is. So last week I hosted a panel, or I sponsored a panel for that was connecting startups or entrepreneurs with angel investors, and the focus ended up being AI, right? And Chinedu Ichiru, one of our panelists, his quote was, "Wealth is created through organization." I'm going to touch on what this means, but I really want us to hold on to this because that's what we have to do as entrepreneurs. We need to create wealth, right? And most people, when they hear wealth, they think we're talking about ourselves. We're able to get paid and we're able to grow our business because we're doing something other people value. So if we understand that organization creates wealth, we can utilize that in order to grow and continue scaling into the future. So let's talk about, the panel broke out into two big discussions, and I boiled it down to these key points. One person, Reggie, believed that AI's key value driver or everything comes down to foundations and infrastructure. He boiled everything in terms of growth, scale, opportunity, etc. comes down to foundation and infrastructure. So what is that? Foundations. If you're talking, most people look at AI from a skyscraper mentality, meaning AI can help us build bigger things. AI can help my presentation go from 1 page to 10 page. AI can help me work with 1,000 clients instead of 10 clients at the same time. Very few people look at AI from an infrastructure lens and a foundation lens, meaning AI can build and I'm going to dive into this. AI can improve our foundations. AI can improve our infrastructure, and that's critical. I'll break that down in a little bit, but I did want to touch on that before I go to the slide dedicated to that. And then finally, from the organization standpoint, from connecting and creating dots, right? I don't think many people look at AI. They look at the data analysis through that lens, but are you looking at AI in general as its ability to connect and create dots? Right? So its ability to organize things. Now, why is that important? So foundations limit the height of a structure, right? So a building, you cannot build a 25-story building on land that is unstable, right? If the land doesn't have if there's not a place to build a good infrastructure, you're limited in terms of what you can build. So what is beautiful with AI is if we're utilizing it to improve our infrastructure, and AI is already doing that in many cities. NVIDIA is using AI to improve the way it creates microchips, right? And what AI needs these chips to run on. So if they're able to improve that, that means they can compute faster. That means they can process things more efficiently. That means we'll be able to create things that we've never dreamed of before from the foundation lens. And each of these is its own keynote. So I'm rushing through a bit, so please hold with me, and that's why I do want to give 10 minutes to answer any questions if there are questions. But I do want to open everyone up, especially the entrepreneurs and leaders, to these frames. And also infrastructure. Infrastructure limits or creates capacity. What does it? So back in the, before modern times, we used to have cobblestone roads, right? Cobblestone paths. And these cobblestone paths, you would walk on them with your shoes, you would walk with your patchworks of leather, your horses, your carriages, etc. Cobblestone paths are not necessarily, if you've walked on them recently, they're very scenic, but it doesn't feel comfortable for this day and age to walk on that repeatedly. Ladies, if you're walking your heels on cobblestone, that's not fun, right? Now in our modern day, how can I say this? In countries with great infrastructure, you're seeing cement and paved roads, which are sidewalks and roads are easier for our cars to drive on. It'll be very difficult for cars to maintain the tires, not the engine, the suspension, to maintain and last as long if all our roads were cobblestone, right? So laying cement roads, it allows for different infrastructure and allows for trucking. It allows for people to utilize roads differently, etc. Now, infrastructure isn't just limited to roads, right? it's also our power system, our grid. How many countries around the world we suffer from a lack of stable electricity, right? And does it make it easier or harder to do business? I have a team. I employ about 20 people throughout Africa, and in one country in particular, I had to buy solar panels, a backup generator, extra internet. I'm waiting to buy Starlink in order to make sure that the team can run well, because there's too many electrical outages and I can't run my business if clients can't be in touch with our team, right? So I had to buy this infrastructure because of that. Now, what is that cost to all of us other entrepreneurs? That, hey, we can't hire people in certain regions because they may not have access to electricity, right? That limits your talent pool. That limits the growth of the nation. That limits its GDP, etc. It limits the the homegrown company's ability to compete on the market if they can't have access to certain infrastructure. So this is why I talk about infrastructure as capacity building. Now, another issue we have in many countries, particularly I'm speaking a lot about Africa because this is Mosisha is based in the University of Western Cape in South Africa. But particularly in Africa, right, we have issues with payment infrastructure, right? How hard is, I have people in, I believe, 5 countries, but 4 other countries. And 4 out of 5 countries, the exception is South Africa, 4 out of 5 countries, it's very difficult for me to send them money other than if I'm using a remittance app, but I'm not doing remittances, I'm paying people their salary, right? So one of the things that can be improved also is our ability to send payments across borders, right? And so that's why I have a picture of PayPal that has enabled me to send money or pay people in South Africa. However, PayPal is not allowed in many other African countries, right? So if you look at AI from that standpoint in your business in terms of, okay, what can I utilize it to build capacity or infrastructure within another country? How can I utilize it to build infrastructure that will create new opportunities for you and your businesses? And if you're a leader as well, that'll create new opportunities for all the startups, all the small businesses, or even the large businesses in your country. Once again, this is a whole nother conversation, but I'm just going to have to move on. Now, when we talk about organization, right? What is the value of connecting dots, right? What is the value of connecting dots? So let me start off with this. Alexander the Great, many people know him as this phenomenal general, phenomenal leader who helped his Macedonia conquer a massive amount of land, right? He did this in part because he was able to organize the different tribal factions within his region and get them to work together and create a new he created new ways of organizing his armies, right? And that allowed him to do more. Rome took this to another level, right? Rome did, people know the Roman legions, but they organized different, I don't want to call it paramilitaries, different units of other people they conquered and integrated them into their ecosystem, into the Roman mindset and the legion, and they were able to conquer more land. They were able to build roads to many places and dive in. And they were able to, in a way that few civilizations had done till that time, get other people to organize and buy into the Roman way of doing things and want to be Roman, right? So let's take this to companies. In the Dutch East Indian Company was the first company really to organize capital well, right? So this new, regardless of what we feel about what happened around it, I want to analyze this. This company was able to take private capital, utilize that, pull it up, and go forward and trade across nations on a massive scale, right? On a massive scale. And that was a new way of organizing and pooling capital. Fast forward today, we have Apple. I believe Apple was the first $1 trillion company. Shareholders, voting rights, dividends, etc. How we this capitalism we have is a really an acceleration or the next 50 levels of what was in the past in terms of organizing shareholders, organizing resources, organizing people, right? This modern day corporation. So when I talk about organization and what we've able to do as humans, imagine if AI is going to help us reformat that. What can we build? Is your vision limited by your organization capacity? Is your vision limited by your by the infrastructures around you? Can you utilize as a business owner? Then can you utilize AI to help build those, help build that foundation, help build that capacity, help build that infrastructure, help build that organization? So now your company can go much further, right? How many transnational African companies do we have, right? It's not just African, across Latin America, right? It seems really Europe, US, somewhat Asia as well, where most of the multinational companies come from, right? Can we utilize AI to have many multinational companies come from Africa as well, right? And what will be the difference when that ecosystem opens up and now you're able to trade across borders? So let's talk about competition, right? So typically as a business, we compete on three different things. We compete on price, we compete on speed, we compete on quality. Those are the major things you're competing on, right? As a business owner. Now let's look through the lens of how are we going to improve this? How are we going to utilize AI in order to compete better on these things? Or how's AI already working to compete better on these things? So I think a lot of what AI is already doing is helping people or competing on price. What do I mean by that? AI has made it significantly cheaper, less expensive to do research in terms of time and money, right? Before having to do, you may have to go to a library, you may have to have a consultation with somebody. You're able to go through reams of information in maybe a minute. Now, it may not always be correct, but in terms of the price or the cost to capture that information, AI has greatly reduced that. Now, how does that affect your business? Can you utilize AI to reduce your prices? Instead of maybe because it costs you, let's say you're paying somebody $20 an hour, and it takes them 50 hours to do something. So that price is about $1,000 at minimum to the client. You probably want to make it 3x or $3,000 to the client. If you're able to utilize AI to do that in 1/10 of the time, right? So instead of $3,000, now you're able to charge the client $300 or $500, saving them $2,500. How many more clients can you acquire? Because before you were locked in at this, I can only acquire these types of customers because they have this type of budget. Now you can work with many more customers who have a smaller budget, or you can produce a massive amount more of products or services because you're able to shrink the cost of production, right? And if you're competing on price and doing this, I want you to also think about price. Typically as business owners, it's something that limits us from scaling rapidly. It limits us from hiring more people. It limits us from doing more work. Are you able to now, since maybe you don't need a whole video editing team, maybe you can utilize AI and hire somebody part-time to do video edit. Are you able to improve your content production, right? Are you able to produce more? Are you able to inform your customers more? So when you're thinking about AI as an entrepreneur, as a startup in terms of the future, think of it from a landscape of, okay, can I expand my vision? Because now my vision is not limited by capacity that I thought was lacking before. From the pricing standpoint, can I fast forward 2 or 3 years? Because now I'm able to do something that I didn't think I had the budget for previously, right? So that's how I'm thinking of AI in terms of price and competing. That's how you have to think about it, because if you're not doing this, eventually your competitors will be doing this, right? You're not in a vacuum, right? You're competing with people who will, they have access to the similar resources, and they'll be able to handle most of the things that, or they have access to ChatGPT, they have access to many of the other platforms. They'll be able to do this and compete on price. So if you don't eventually compete on price, they will, and they might be able to knock you out on that. So that's something to really think about if you are running your own business, or if you're working at a startup or small business as well. Something to think about also. Speed. So something that we were able, it would take us 1,000 hours, might take us 10 hours to do, right? And customers like turnarounds. I know right now I'm waiting on something from somebody I hired, and it is 2 or 3 days later than when I wanted it, and I'm not happy. I'm not happy. Versus there's some people who deliver me things earlier, which makes me very happy. Speed is something that you can utilize to make your clients choose you over other people, right? Because you're able to turn around things faster. You're able to give them more time to review. Now you don't need as much of a lead time when processing something. Let's say typically I would say on engagement, hey, I need 2 months notice to do something. All right, can that shrink down to, oh, I need 15 days notice? At least my notice is more predominantly on my calendar needs than my need of production. This is what you can think about when you're focusing on competing utilizing speed, right? Competing utilizing speed. What else would we say? Now, let's not limit it to what you can produce or what you can do. Think of it, we are limited. So Formula One drivers, right? They have some of, if not Formula One drivers and fighter jet pilots have the fastest reaction responses in the world, right? Like even they are limited, right? A fraction, they may be able to do something, but they still need, maybe it's a fraction of a second, 0.1 seconds or 0.2 seconds of a second in order to react and respond. What if we can say, okay, we know you can't go faster at this. Maybe we can connect the best people or the fastest people to AI that process or gives them more lead time. And now they're able to do, instead of being limited to maybe Mach 4, we can go up to Mach 20, right? So I'm not going to dive too much down this rabbit hole, but that's something to think about. Don't just think about speed from your slowest or your average producers as a business. Think about speed from your fastest producers. Are you at the top of your company able to produce, let's say, 4 times faster than anybody else in your company? What happens if you start producing 40 times faster, right? What happens if you start producing 100 times faster? Because now you're able to utilize AI to improve your speed that much more. So as a business, you can occupy more market share, right? And the faster you integrate that, and the faster you start working on this is something that allows you to, now you have a war chest, right? And you can reinvest and you can learn how to continue getting faster before your competitors can catch up. So that's something as well. This is some place where I would love to take some time and ask some questions about, do you think there is a quality difference when AI? Do you think AI improves quality of items, products, or services? I have my thoughts on this, but I would love to see, I don't know if we have a chat box open. I would love to see if anybody has any thoughts on this. Sorry, for some reason, I have to get Zoom back over here. Okay.
Someone responded, can you see?
Mm-hmm. No, I think.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, no, I think creative thinking and problem solving. Okay. So you think creative thinking and problem solving is I'm guessing a foundational requirement of quality, if you're making that statement. Yes, thanks. Anybody else? Do people think AI creates more quality, produces better quality than humans? I only see one person. This is where I would love to have a discussion around this. Okay.
So quality, I think in terms of speed, right? AI can actually, let me turn on my video. AI can quickly glance through lots of data, like no human being can, and be able to analyze. So in terms of speed of processing information, I think AI is superior. But also in terms of access to data, we can only learn so much within a specific time, but AI can easily actually glance through enormous data and become aware in quote, of what that data is and use it to make informed decisions. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I thank you so much, Dr. Kenichuko. So really my contention, I do agree. I believe that AI only really improves quality maybe for our least skilled workers, our least skilled people. Rather, I think what AI does is it makes things cheaper and it does things faster. So I think especially for high skilled people, what people may think is higher quality on AI is more faster processing. I think humans can get there, they just would need more time, right? And sometimes people conflate speed with quality, right? And that's why I really wanted to break out the three different dimensions of competition, right? Price, speed, and quality. I also think Wilson's comment about creative thinking and problem solving is pertinent because quality might not always be rational, right? What is high quality to me is not necessarily high quality to somebody else, right? So we have this sometimes irrational feeling about, in the US, we have this thing where everybody, you can't be sued if you say, I sell the best wings in America. Now, you can't have 10,000 restaurants saying I have the best wings, right? But that's diving into the idea that it is it's subjective, right? Quality in some ways is subjective, and it's that creativity, that gap, right? We can say, hey, finely made suit or a well-pressed denim, right? Why does that make that more quality than some nylon stretchable jeans, right? So what is quality? And I think this is one of the rare places where we can still compete with AI, and we might be able to compete with AI in the future in terms of how can we still have to utilize it to some point, but how can we still continue improving and fighting on the quality metric when we know almost everyone has the same access to the price reduction and the speed reduction of AI? How can we compete and fight on that quality metric? So that may mean a future where there's a lot more niche businesses, because now you may have to hyper focus into whatever person's perception. The beautiful thing about, even if you're super niche, utilizing the organizational capacities of AI, you might be able to connect and sell to people all around the world in that niche, right? Just kind of like how Amazon did with its bookstore. It went for those long tail items where those books they weren't the best sellers that very few people purchased, but because they were shipping it all across the world, they were able to accumulate that and build a massive company behind that. And that's what I think we need to really think about as we're utilizing AI. And I think that's why Mosisha is so important. And DAAD and also the University of Western Cape, I think as we're looking through this, we have to really look at education and re-educating ourselves constantly. How are we upskilling? How are we reskilling? How are we stretching ourselves? One of the things that it's kind of like a bicycle, right? In a way, AI it's going to help you move faster, but if you're in better shape, you're going to go a lot further on a bicycle than if you're in worse shape, right? So how are you upskilling to that point where you're always on the front end of receiving those benefits? And I think it's worth that investment, especially now. It's always been worth it. The Dutch East India Company, right? They were a massive corporation. Still, you can't say they were necessarily having more wealth than Amazon, Apple, Tesla, Nvidia, etc. now, right? I didn't get to go through this. Once again, I didn't get to go through this, but one of the things that when we talk about capacity and infrastructure with AI, the rise of I talked about the cobblestone paths. Infrastructure is not just that; it's the spread of electricity, the spread of payment networks, the internet. How many of us? Right now, I'm doing this from New York, right? This would not have been possible even 15 years ago, right? Because of the speed of the internet, this would not have been possible. We have clients all over the world. You can have clients all over the world. This would not have been possible at that time. So the scale, in terms of thinking about the ecosystem, and that's why I want all of us to think of it from a foundation level rather than thinking about the skyscrapers. Think about the ecosystem that we were able to build on top of the internet, right? What is the ecosystem, and what's the value we can build on top of AI and process it that way? I think that's a great lens for us entrepreneurs, for those of you who are working in startups, especially in a leadership position, or those of you who aspire to hold a leadership position. That's something I think we should all really process. And I know I want to make sure I keep my promise to give 10 minutes of Q&A. So I'll wrap that there, and I will take any questions that anybody has about any of these topics.
Absolutely, that's actually very powerful. So basically, you looked at the integration of AI through the human capital dimension. So humans still has an advantage. How should we now almost like create the right configuration that in order for us to have competitive advantage, either through our own workforce, leveraging AI, or whatever mixture we can, but it's all about really leveraging it for efficiency, understanding that there are limitations in what AI can do. So now let's throw the questions open. Let me see. Please raise your hand if you have a question, then I'm going to invite you to play. Okay, Wilson has a question. Okay, Wilson, you can talk.
Hi everyone. Hi Achumboro, and thank you, Kene, for the opportunity. I'm sorry, I'll be taking us a bit further away from the entrepreneurship and slightly towards the legal domain, because I mean, Achumboro, you're someone that I've been following on LinkedIn for quite some time now. So I just thought I'd seize this opportunity to ask you this really burning question. So, I mean, you said you've had quite some experience, I mean, investing in the African continent. And so perhaps, from your perspective, what do you think needs to change about the data protection regulations on the African continent just to create an enabling environment for the use and for the development and the deployment of AI technologies? Thank you. That's something that you can maybe just share your opinion on.
Phenomenal question. Thank you for asking it, Wilson. One thing I want to say, even before we get to data protection, we actually, when we think about data protection, I think sometimes regulators or sometimes people, we may be thinking about it from a Western or, how can I say this? high infrastructure environment. The US, Europe, even Asia, in my opinion, is producing a ton more data than Africa, right? Africa, one of our problems, I think, is we don't have enough data. So whenever we're creating regulations, whenever politicians or policymakers are creating regulations, it's an incentive system, right? When you are protecting something, sometimes you're protecting to growth, sometimes you're limiting its growth. So my question, even before we get to what protections are we in a space where we want to inhibit data growth? Right now in Africa, where we don't have enough data centers, that's partly because it's expensive to set up a service, partly because of the energy issue, right? It's partly because there's issues getting chips, right, into Africa. So do we already have the infrastructural foundational elements to capture the data we need, right, across our 54 countries or plus countries, right, depending on how you count. So that's what I'll say on that end. Now, regarding, I do want to answer your question. I don't just want to skip and give my answer. Now, regarding what I would do, I would say the key thing to protect is what are our most sensitive data that we need to protect. So is that healthcare data? Meaning we have issues. We need more healthcare clinics. We need more higher quality hospitals. Do we have enough data protections around what patient information is out there, right? And is there a protection, or is there a system to connect X hospital with Y clinic, or with local doctor, right? So that now we're actually being able to send that data securely and trust, where the people at the local level can trust filling out these forms and trust uploading their data, because they know that their neighbor or somebody else is not going to be able to see what's going on in their medical history. That's kind of how I'm processing it. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's really insightful. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. More questions. Let me check the chat.
And while you're looking at more questions,
okay, go ahead.
One thing I would like us to also look at data for AI for, we have a lot of silos, how can I say, or tribes, right? Or tribes across, and one of the things AI can do, hopefully can do, and this is another thing I got from Chinedu, is possibly help us break down those silos, right? So now we don't have as much tribalism. If we're expanding to leadership and entrepreneurship, we don't have as much tribalism, that more people willing to work with each other or vote for another tribe, because there's a better understanding of what's going on, or there's more transparency, right, in decision-making, processing, etc. So that's something that I'm thinking that AI can help as well. And if there's less tribalism, there'll be more opportunities for entrepreneurs, or good entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for that insight. Okay. Thank you for your. Okay. Someone is asking for slides, Dr. Achumboro, in case if you are willing to share the slide with us, we'll pass it on to them. But of course, if you are not able, I would understand. Yeah. Some of them, they found it very insightful, and they're asking if they would have the slides to study further. Guys, do you have more questions?
And is anybody working on a startup now? Anybody working at a company? Is anybody looking for a job? And what are you doing? I would love to see that as well before we wrap up.
Yeah. So maybe I think one of the questions you guys can actually, maybe let me ask this question on their behalf, because quite a number of them are looking for jobs. Some are also in the process of starting a business. But Achumboro, the great thing is that you are also an employer. You employed a lot of people across the world. How would you suggest this, since most of them are young professionals, how would you suggest they actually get themselves ready for this evolving world of work, where AI becomes very much dominant, what would be your advice to them? If you were to be starting off your career at this time, what would you do?
Well, no, I wouldn't necessarily say what I'll do because I'm a little bit of a crazy one. Us entrepreneurs, we're a bit crazy and risk-taking. So what would be the most practical advice to take? I don't think things have changed, right? What do I mean by that? I don't think things have changed over the history of mankind. Typically, you want to find what is the most in-demand profession, right? That will sustain over time. And that's usually driven by who is the biggest employers, who are the biggest employers, right? So you're looking at that, and why I say that, I'm going to, very short time, so I'm going to tie this quickly. I wish I can expand on this. One of the biggest drivers of employment in the future may be AI. That's why I started with that, but maybe I didn't unpack it enough. AI needs data centers, right? AI needs energy. The people who are setting themselves up to be able to supply that data, to help AI process the data, because it still needs to learn what are biases, right? What data is correct, what's incorrect, right? They're going to need some editing on that. How are they modeling out information? You still see, even in the most beautiful of images, AI gets hands wrong, right? So those people who can tweak and help feed AI in a way, that's a key thing to look at if going into the future. Cybersecurity. The question is whether, as things continue to move more towards the online realm, in the past, one of the best ways to get a new job or new opportunity was to move to a new land, right? So that's why people got so excited when they discovered new lands, is because that meant opportunity, that meant trade, etc. What is the new land? We've seemed like we run out of land over the oceans. We still have to go under the oceans. But what is new land other than space? The digital world, right? That's a whole new world. So how can you provide value in that space also? I know it's not as direct an answer as some people would like, but really diving into that demand, what is in demand and what's going to be in demand, and tuning your skills to be closer to people who are making those decisions or having the skill set, preferably both, or having the key skill set they are looking for, and constantly upskilling.
Yeah. That's actually a very fantastic answer. So basically, it's like anticipating or trying to figure out what is in demand, but more importantly, what is likely to be in demand, so that you actually get yourself ready for it. And do you think, of course, there are a lot of talks around AGI now, with the vision of OpenAI and Elon Musk, thinking that it could come as close as 2-3 years. If we come to that point where we actually have these powerful tools that could do practically everything any human can do, including creative thinking, how do you think that would change the dynamics of entrepreneurship? Because if it's actually true, right now I still have my doubts, but they speak so confidently that we're able to build this thing that can do anything any human being can do, including creativity and all the rest. If that is possible, don't you think it changes the landscape of business completely?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot to unpack, but that's completely true. It is my worry that there might not be opportunities for people. So I think urgency in the next, now, not even the next, there's not even time for the next. Urgency now to really figure out something and become good at it, right? Become good at it and get a nest egg. Because there is going to be a question of how many people are needed to work, right? And if people aren't directly leading into feeding AI, that's why I say it might be the biggest demand. Because if it's knocking out other businesses or creatives or whatever, then the only jobs that might be available may be government and AI, right? So if it's not feeding into one of those two things, it'll be very tough to get a job unless you're in the top 1%. But this is why I'm going to harken back and tag one of the things I said before. I don't think necessarily AI competes on quality, right, for the top bracket. So you have to find your niche and get to that top bracket so you can feed AI and help it with that quality angle there. It's going to get there faster than you. It's going to get there more efficiently or at a lower price point than you, but perhaps you can help it at that level. So that's all the things. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to unpack it fully, but everything is there in what I said in terms of what you can go and do and look for, trying to compete on that quality angle.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Guys, do you have any more questions? Let me see. Somebody said AI bias due to training data prejudice is a key policy issue. That we should discuss how that affects. I think probably the person is alluded, especially because of the focus on Africa. The fact that majority of the data used to train this model had Eurocentric and North American view. Yeah, that's where you already stated the fact that there's no data available. So if there's no data available and the food that AI eats is data, it means that Africa is basically unaccounted for in the development of this model. And that leads to bias. But maybe if you want to talk about that and what should be done.
Sure. So that is, I'm going to talk about it from two lenses. First, I'm going to talk about it from the entrepreneurship lens. That means, is there an opportunity there, right? It seems like, is there an opportunity where can you profit by providing better data, right? Yeah. Can you profit by providing better data? Do people want that data? Do people want unbiased data, or do people want biased data? We talk about AI and biased data, but humans, we operate on biased data every day.
Yeah.
Right? We perceive things through a biased lens every day. I'm not saying it's good. I always try to break things down into the world as it is. I didn't have anybody to really feel sorry for me, so I can't feel sorry for myself, right? so I look at the world as it is. So are we able to do that? And can you then, actually, I'm going to make it three lenses. 2, is it more profitable to have biased data or unbiased data? Because if it's more profitable to have unbiased data, can you create that set, and that's more opportunities, right? Because it means that the unbiased data is going to beat the biased data platform, right? So that can be a competitive edge for that AI algorithm, because now it has a better or quite less biased data set, so it's able to make quote unquote better decisions. Is that helpful? And is it going to make it more efficient? Is it going to make it more powerful, right? Because essentially that's what we think AI wants to be, right? More powerful.
Yeah.
And a lot to unpack there. I know I'm leaving a lot of threads that I'm not unpacking fully. And then third, what is let's be realistic. We talk about Western biased data. Has the quote unquote West been hindered by utilizing biased data? Right? Usually Western companies are usually at the forefront, right, of almost all economies. So that means they haven't.
Yeah.
Right? So then now my underlying assumption is it more powerful to have biased data or unbiased data? And then if it is more powerful to have biased data, what biased data is leading to more power, right? So that's a whole philosophical thing that we could get into. But understanding sometimes we're chasing being unbiased. But is that actually where is the power? Does power lie in the being unbiased?
So you are making a distinction between means and ends. So what's our goal? What do we want to achieve? And do we really think that biased data or unbiased data should help us get there?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and exactly, Dr. Kenichugo, you hit the nail on the head. And furthermore to that point, I think for those of us who are passionate about helping people, it's our prerogative to build great businesses. Because you can't argue for this and you can't build this if you don't have the resources to do it, if you don't have the right people to build out this AI, if you can't afford the data, the servers, the electricity, the security around everything you're running, if you can't integrate it, right?
Yeah.
So if we're truly passionate about having unbiased data, or if we're truly passionate about having data that better reflects Africa, we have to be forefront at developing it. We have to be forefront at building the things we need to do this. Because it's very hard to advocate telling somebody else, hey, give me more power. Take away your power and give it to me, right?
Yeah.
That almost never works across the history of humanity.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you are taking an entrepreneurial perspective to it. This is the reality. Deal with it as it is, not as you want it to be. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Achumboro. It's really been an honor actually having this chat and this conversation and having you really share from your world of ideas, very structured, deep things you laid out there that actually needs one to really ponder through and figure out where they are in their career and how they fit into this evolving world. Once again, thank you. It's really a great privilege having you online. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ruth, who is also a co-organizer of this, she is from the DAAD side. Ruth, I don't know if you have any question, any thoughts for?
No, thanks very much. I was happily listening. Sorry, but thanks again so much also from my side. Apologies for being so silent.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome, fantastic. Once again, thank you, Mr. Achumboro, and do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, you too. Congrats. This looks like it's going to be a phenomenal conference.
Amen. Awesome.